Here we are. I think we are live.
I hope so.
Good morning, everyone. Today it's a different live interview because I'm speaking English, which is not usual. But I'm here with Tara Cull, which is an architect from Australia, which helps other architects in their business English. And hi, Tara. How are you?
Hello, Marina. How are you? I'm good.
Fine, thanks. Can you tell me a bit more about this activity?
Yes, so I'm a landscape architect from Australia, and I've been working as a landscape architect for the last 15 years. And in the last 2 years, I've been working as an English teacher. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was to incorporate my two passions, teaching English and teaching English to people who are architects as well. Because as you know, in architecture, it's a very specific way of communicating. And I think that because I have the skills of talking to clients and working with other professions, I wanted to be able to help other people to be able to do that as well. And English is such a global language. It helps people to reach a wider audience. There's a lot of people that live in English-speaking countries who work as an architect or landscape architect, and they need to improve their English. So it's something that I've really taken on board and I'm really passionate about. So for the last 2 years, I've been teaching English to adults, not just architects. I've been teaching engineers and scientists and now architects. And yeah, I think it's a really important work for me because I can help people to improve their reach with clients. Yeah.
What do you think benefits? What are the benefits for architects being better in English, improving their language abilities? Which are the indirect or direct consequences of being better in English?
Yeah. So obviously having good English, I mean, you and I can speak now because you are able to speak English. So it means that you can have a better reach. You can speak to people from other countries and you can have clients from English-speaking countries, but also in Europe, English is also the lingua franca between a lot of European countries. And so that's the common language. So it's having a better English means that you can have a wider reach, but also communicate your ideas and get clients that you really want to work with. So I think for me, that's one of the most important aspects of it.
A thing that appealed to me when we met digitally
Yes.
is, I am an architect and I am now helping other architects in their marketing and mindset because I understand which struggles they have and what are the missing pieces because I know the pieces that were not explained to architects when I was studying and working. And you are an architect too. And so there is something which is, there is a value, but only you have because you understand maybe also not the language, but also the struggles of the architects in their activities in this language.
Yeah, absolutely. And for example, the ways that you speak to clients and how do you communicate your ideas, I think that's really, really important. And say, for example, you needed help with English and you just went to a general English teacher, then they might not necessarily understand the ways that you need to communicate to the clients or to communicate to the other professions, for example. So very often when I meet with my students, they might do things like present a project to me, and then I have a good insight into maybe some of the vocabulary that you're using or that they're using and how they might use it in a better way to explain the design. And I think that's the advantage that I have, is that I can talk about how you might sell the idea better, how you might get the client to be listening. And also, because I live the experience as well, I'm still working as a landscape architect, so I'm still working with clients. And me myself, I'm also improving the way that I speak to clients all the time. So I'm always thinking about these things. And so actually what happens is, when I speak to my students and I give them advice about things, I think, oh, actually, I probably need to do that more when I'm giving a presentation. So it can be like a two-way thing. So I'm learning from them and they're learning from me. So I think that's really important. And also, I think it's good to be reminded sometimes that, you know, clients can be a certain way, or people that we're working with can be a certain way. And that's the insight that I like to share with people. You know, it's okay if this happens because I've been through this too, or that sort of thing. So I like to draw upon my own experience, and also colleagues that I work with as well. I speak a lot to colleagues. So if somebody comes to me and says, I have this student who asked this question, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think? How should I help them in this way? So also, I think the advantage that I have is that I have a wider network of architects and landscape architects. So I work with architects as well, and I work with landscape architects and engineers. So yeah, I can use that experience a lot, which I think helps.
Yes, the experience which comes from working with the students or the clients, and helps to get more clear on what you can do to help them, and it helps ourselves. It's
Exactly.
a two-way circle. And myself, yeah. I listen. I try to understand how the architect feels a struggle, to be able to help him in a clearer way, and that helps also myself, because you also, it was about our lives to be sure. Yeah. I didn't forget. And yeah. This kind of way to see the relationship helps both the parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's so useful and important that the person which makes the work with you can feel is in a space which is an helpful space, but you are listening to him in order to help him better.
Yes, and I think the advantage that I have as well is that when people speak to me, so very often what I do with people is that they might present a particular project to me that they're going to present to a client or to somebody, and I just say, you present it as if you're going to present it to the client, and then I can point out things to them that maybe they aren't aware of, or that they notice that they're doing, and that's a good way to do it, where there's no pressure. So there's no pressure of having to sit in front of a client, or sometimes I work with people who want to impress their boss, for example, or they want to impress their colleagues, so that they have this really nice non-pressure situation where they can talk about their ideas, and then I can sort of give them ideas about how they're communicating things and how it's coming across. So I think that's a really important space that I can create for people, and I think it helps people to notice things that they might not necessarily always notice.
And I was thinking, so if someone is listening to a live or to a replay, please, you can comment and ask questions, so we will come back to you and see which are the question you have about the English and the architecture. And it makes me think about, do you find recurring mistakes in your students I'm not speaking English at the moment.
No,
but
you're making sense.
find his typical mistakes in which people fall, and you have to work on it.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I mean, I work with a lot of different nationalities, and lots of different nationalities have their typical mistakes. So, for example, well, Italians sometimes have trouble with the pronunciation of the ed sound at the end of a word, or sometimes they might forget to put the definite article at the start of a word. So there's some very common things like that. But what I find in particular with Spanish and Italian and French is that they struggle mostly with pronunciation and accent, and also the rhythm of the language. So, and very often that can be just through lack of listening exposure. So one of the things that I say, my biggest piece of advice that I give, and I sound like a bit of a broken record saying this because I say it all the time, is you need to listen to the language every single day. You need to listen, because the more you listen to the language, the more likely your brain is to sort of start taking on those patterns and understanding the vocabulary in the context. So that's one of the biggest things, is how do I improve my accent? How do I improve my technical vocabulary? So I always say, try and listen to the language more. And possibly that comes from, I'm not sure, that TV shows, English TV shows are often dubbed. So they're in your native language in a lot of countries in Europe. Some other mistakes that I see is things like using filler words a lot, like and are, and that really comes a lot from possibly lack of speaking or lack of exposure to the language, and not being able to express themselves all the time. So that can be a really hard thing to fix, because, well, not fix, but to improve, because if you're used to speaking really quickly in your own language, or you're used to doing that in your own language, it can be a really hard habit to break in English. So that's a big one, the ums and the ahs, which can be really distracting. So particularly if you're giving a presentation, say you're giving a presentation as an architect to a client, and then every second word is and if your client is an English native speaker or they speak English really well, it can be really distracting. And so it can actually almost really change the way that the client understand what you're talking about. So that's one of the biggest things, the filler words, the ums and the ahs. I just said Oops. What else? Yeah, it's more about the rhythm. Sometimes there's one mistake that Italians make very often, which is they don't use the pronoun sometimes. So is very beautiful, but what do they mean in terms of what is beautiful? She is beautiful, or it is beautiful. They just say is very beautiful.
Yes, because in Italian you can miss it.
Yes.
And so you usually, yes, miss it, and also in another language. Yes.
And that's the thing. I mean, the mistakes come a lot from, because of your own language, you're trying to translate in your head. There's another one which is very common. I'm not sure if it's in Italian, but explain me. Can you explain me how to do this? Which is a very small one, but it's just a missing of the little preposition to. So can you explain to me is how it should come across. But yeah, it's one of those things that they miss out. But I think if I had to say, what's that?
I could have done this one because I'm not. I can explain. Not sure. Yes, to me.
Explain to me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very common one.
Also, with what you say about the listening and watching TV or films or documentaries in the original language, actually, it's more easier to do that now because of all the film on demand you can see, and you can choose the language. And so
Yes.
on myself, I usually like to listen to the original voice when it is
Yeah.
an English or an American voice. Whatever language, it's more difficult because I can understand Italian, French, and English, but no more than that. Maybe a little Spanish, and it helps. But yes, I think there is the need of something more, which is when you are not only listening but also trying to express yourself in the real situation. And this is what I think is very useful, having someone which is able to coach and to explain to you, listen to you, and help you to go through the mistake or the other side of the mistake, to solve the mistake. And this is absolutely very, very useful.
Well,
And
that's the thing. Sorry, you go.
No, you can go.
I was just going to say that that's the thing, is that I tell a lot of people they need to listen. They need to listen to people expressing their ideas and listen to subjects that are really relevant to what they need to use the language. Because very often a lot of people will say to me, for example, I watch Friends in English. But Friends is not always necessarily relevant to what you're trying to use the language for. So I say you need to listen as much as possible to people expressing their ideas. You need to mimic what they're doing, and exactly what you're saying about having someone there who is able to listen to you speak and then give you that feedback. And also, one thing that happens a lot in, say, English-speaking countries is we don't necessarily always correct people, because it can be seen as we don't want to be coming across as very rude. So we don't correct people. And that's probably one of the biggest problems that people say to me, no one corrects me. And it's because they don't know if they can correct you, or it's not necessarily always appropriate. So that's, again, why having the listening, but then having somebody who listens to you at a time where it's okay to be able to be corrected, that's even better.
Absolutely. And I wanted to point out that I have been on the website, your website, and it's funny because I was looking through it, and I saw the vertical forest of Stefano Boeri, the architect.
Yes.
And I was thinking, oh yes, sure, because we are in Milan, because I am in Milan. And then I thought, no, Tara is not in Milan. So she has chosen this photo, but it's not because she is there. And so it was a funny one, because it was in my head, it was because you were just near me.
It was meant to be.
Yes, it was like we were in the same space, but we are not. It's thanks to the videos that we can have this kind of feeling. And also, I wanted to point out that you are working with architects all around the world. So you don't work only on physical presence, but also through video, if I understand well.
Yes, that's correct. So all of my students currently, well, also because of the current situation, they're all online. So I have students in Australia, in Hong Kong, in France. I'd like to have some in Italy. That would be excellent. Yeah, all around. So it's really good. And the thing is that technology allows us to be able to do that. And the way that I teach my lessons is that I have all of the documents that I need. We can share Google Documents. We can talk about certain things. You can share your screen. You can share images and things like that. So it makes it really easy. And in a way, I think it actually makes it easier, because you don't have to travel places, or you can use your time more efficiently because you don't have to go anywhere. You can do it all online. And this allows us to talk even as well, which is good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope to have some good questions for you. And so if any of my Italian architects, because my main listeners are in Italy, have some question to ask or something they didn't understood, or they want to point out some of my accent and mistakes, you're welcome. You can go. The idea is first of the first point, and is to start doing things. And even if it's not perfect, if you don't start it and you don't work on improving it, you can't reach the goal. And it works for English, it works for marketing, it works for everything. Experience is important, and you need to experience through listening, through studying, but also through taking action. And
Exactly.
that's, I think, it's the main idea, which I think you agree with me, Tara.
Oh yes, I agree. I mean, in particular with the marketing, how do you know if people understand your message if you don't put it out there to start with? You need to see if the message resonates with people. So you've got to start somewhere, and you can only improve from there. So it goes for marketing, it goes for English, it goes for everything. And when I started learning French, my goodness, I was so bad at the start. I didn't know what I was doing, what I was saying, but the more you get used to it, the more you just relax into it, and you realize you have a learning curve. You have to learn certain things, but that's okay. You're not going to be perfect to start with.
Thanks, Tara. It was a pleasure. And
thank you, Marina.
I say goodbye